Hey everyone, Kyle Meinke here, Detroit Lions beat writer for MLive.com. Joined as always by Justin Rogers. We're in Allen Park wrapping up day two of the Lions minicamp. And Justin, the big story of day two has nothing to do with minicamp at all, but it's the schedule being released. A couple of surprises there. Lions opening up on Monday Night Football, first time since 1971 against the New York Giants. And a couple of tough games after that at Carolina, home against Green Bay, then wrapping up in Chicago, in Green Bay. That's a tough bookend for the Lions.
Yeah, no, I think the NFL granted the Lions a gift by giving them a home game, a primetime game. We know how the crowd gets at Ford Field for
Yeah.
those opening games, and really, I mean, the way the Giants have played, who knows what they'll add in the draft, but that should be a win for the Lions, and that's a nice way to get a new regime off to a good start. You know, the eyes are drawn to the last two games of the season. You know, who knows how the first 14 will go. Lions could be, you know, 7-7 at that point, could be well under 500, could be on track for the playoffs, but they have to face two division rivals at their place, two places they've historically struggled, particularly Green Bay, where they've lost something like 172 in a row. But
23 to be exact. Let's get the
yeah,
facts out.
well,
I like facts. So
you know, at some point that streak has to stop. I mean,
yeah.
it can't go on forever. It doesn't make sense in a league built around parity. But you know, as I tweeted, I mean, how compelling would it be if the Lions are sitting there at 9-5 or 9-6? I'm sorry, and a win gets them in. They've got to go into Green Bay and exercise that demon to get into the playoffs. I mean, it would be a great story for the season, but that's such a far away.
Right.
But the rest of the schedule, I think, is fairly favorable.
Yeah, and that does put more of the onus for the Lions if they do want to make the playoffs on getting the job done before those last 2 weeks of the season, because you cannot count on wins at Soldier Field, which the Lions won there last year, but they lost the 5 before that, and then you go into Green Bay where you lost 23 in a row. So those are just things you cannot count on, especially if Green Bay itself is fighting for a playoff spot. And you know, the Lions have talked so much this offseason about this being a playoff year, and you know, Tom LeWant's dropped the S word, Super Bowl. I mean, if those things are going to happen, and now you're going to Chicago and to Green Bay, that just makes your job that much more difficult. It makes it intriguing for us and for fans, but from a team perspective, that's a difficult 2 game stretch, as difficult as it gets. And I like the opener on Monday Night Football. I wasn't expecting that. And that's a cool way, I think, to launch the Jim Caldwell era. You know, the Tigers play downtown that night on Monday night on September 8th, and you've got the Lions playing downtown, opening their season on Monday Night Football. This is going to be a very festive day for the Lions and for the city of Detroit. It's pretty cool to kick off the season that way.
Yeah, I think you pointed out Michigan hosts Notre Dame that week too, right?
Yeah, and I believe Michigan State goes to Oregon. So that's a
good
huge
week
it's
to be a
huge
sports
weekend.
fan for sure.
Right. One surprise also in the schedule, Justin, was the Thanksgiving game. We anticipated them playing the Bills because traditionally they would have played an AFC opponent this year. And also the Bills' website indicated they'd be playing on Thanksgiving. But surprise, they're playing the Bears. And that game to me is immensely intriguing. These teams don't like each other. And everyone talks kind of about like the Lions and Packers rivalry or whatever that goes on there, but this is the big rival right now. They don't like each other. You know, the Lions swept the series last year, but if you remember that second game at Soldier Field, the Bears were pissed that they lost that game. You know, they yelled at the Detroit's defensive line for being too aggressive and being dirty after that game. Brandon Marshall vowed revenge in the playoffs. Now they're going to, you know, to go for that. Obviously, that matchup didn't happen, so to go for that revenge, it's going to happen this year on Thanksgiving. That's extremely interesting to me.
Yeah, Marshall and the Lions. There's no love lost there. The recent matchups have certainly been chippy. And what I like about that game, the Lions and Green Bay game, that's kind of been the standard game, is there's a lot less of a likelihood of that game being competitive. You know, Lions have been competitive, Green Bay, but there's just more of a chance of being a blowout one way or the other, where those Chicago games have been close, tough, physical football games. And that makes for good television.
Right. That's the big story of the day, Justin, but we did have a day of minicamp as well. Still no Ndamukong Suh, still no Carlin Isles, still no Chris Houston, no Michael Shore today, which was a surprise. But I thought the biggest story was who was here, and that was Ryan Broyles. He was here Tuesday, but not practicing. On the practice field today with a helmet, catching passes. First time he's done any of that stuff since rupturing his Achilles tendon last year. What were your impressions of his return, and what could that mean for Detroit's receiver core?
I've never ruptured my Achilles, but my wife's aunt has. She's back and walking at 9 months. Says she's 100%. So I think that the timetable seems about right based on that information alone.
Information you get only here at
Right,
MLF.com.
wife's aunt comparing him to Ryan Broyles, but
No, it's a big boost for Broyles.
it's a great
and-
boost.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They need him back. They're talking about drafting a wide receiver, but even as a fourth wide receiver on this team, guy that can come in, compete in the slot, be in 4 wide receiver sets. He's a part of this team. They drafted him in the second round for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was expected to be the number 2 to Kelvin, and obviously that hasn't happened after consecutive season-ending injuries for Broyles. And his career to me is kind of at a crossroads. And you never want to put a guy on the block or anything, but this guy, the Lions already signed Golden Tate to be the number 2 they thought Ryan Broyles was going to be. Now they're talking about drafting a starting caliber receiver, perhaps in the first 10 picks of the draft, either Sammy Watkins or Mike Evans. And so, his place in the pecking order could be sliding, and especially if he can't get his deal in order this offseason and this season, he could find his way out of Detroit in sometime in the near future. So I think this is an immensely important offseason for Ryan Broyles personally, and also for the Lions collectively and their receiver position. I mean, they need a healthy Broyles to fill out the depth that they've lacked the past couple of years.
I think almost expectations are zero. I mean, you just have to set them so low you can't count on them. So anything you get's a bonus. And if he's 100% healthy, I think it could be a nice, pleasant surprise.
That's a wrap from day 2 here at the minicamp. We got one more day tomorrow on Thursday. Keep it right here at MLive for all your coverage. Justin Rogers, and I'm Kyle Meinke.